Welcome to Adekyn Plays Railway Empire. Alright, welcome to another Railway Empire video. I promised that I would take another shot at the gold rush scenario and see if we can improve the way we're feeding goods into the cities and promoting city growth. So we're still going to use the 4 city cluster, and that's what I'm going to be working on first, is getting that set up, and then we're going to take a slightly different approach for feeding in goods into our little network. So here we go. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to talk through explaining the strategy, explaining this or that until we get to the feeding of the goods. So I'd encourage you to watch the other videos I've done or to visit my website. I'll have the link in the description and visit my website and go out there and read about the strategy. That would be a good thing to do. So I may not talk too awful much. You're probably going, "Yay, good man!" But I'm going to try to focus on getting this build done and done right. I will say I did learn that little trick. If you're starting to bury too much, if you just click and put another point there, it actually raises the ground up, reduces your cost quite a bit. It's kind of a nifty little trick. There's 71,000. That's probably the cheapest I've ever built that line. And I've built that line a lot of times trying these different strategies. We are going to use the automatic here rather than the express goods. I want all the goods coming out of the cities to be sent directly to the other cities um, via our direct lines. That's why we're going to bother to make 6 direct lines so that we can ship directly from one to the other. The alternative, of course, would be to um, make these express lines, express goods only, and then ship our goods on a separate freight line. And we will be shipping all our goods from out of the network into the network on a separate line that we'll set up later. But for right now, I just want to get point to point, city to city stuff going for all 4 cities and all 6 lines that we need in order to hook up those cities. And I'm going to go off record right now and keep working on this, and we'll pick it back up after I've made a little more progress. All right, welcome back. I just finished our 6 lines, and let's just kind of take a second to review. So what we have now, we have 4 cities, all connected with direct lines to each of the other 3 cities in our big cluster here. And the 2 hardest ones, of course, I had to blast through the mountains to go San Francisco to Carson City and Sacramento to Carson City. And by the way, do not try. I've tried this once, doesn't work. If you run your Sacramento line, run it around like this. You can't see this, but if you run all the way up through to Shasta and then around and down that Shasta to Carson City line and try to avoid the mountain, what happens is there's a rule that I had forgotten. They mentioned it in the tutorials. You only get rail traffic if the speed and or distance of the trip is shorter than the passenger or freight could do overland. So apparently, when I tried this before, the guys in Sacramento going to Carson City would just take a land route through the mountains or over the mountains through a pass or whatever, however they did it. That didn't represent it on the game, except it is there. That mechanic is there. So make sure that you have a line that's shorter. So by doing it this way, we get plenty of traffic by running it through the mountain, we get plenty of traffic between Sacramento and Carson City. So now we're all set up with that. So what the next phase is to enter, and when you'll notice it's December 1851. So it's taken us about 2 years to completely set up our line. We have how many trains do we have running? 42 trains. We have 42 trains running on 6 lines. So it's an average of 7 per line. And obviously, the longer the line, the more we have. Everybody's growing. All 4 cities are growing. And why is that? We haven't put any goods in yet, but because they're on the relatively soft side, they've got a good balance here. We've got 2 beer, 2 textiles, and a meat, and 2 meat. So we have a balance of stuff being moved, so that all the cities are getting meat and beer and textiles in a nice balance, and that'll help all of them to grow. And in fact, let's take a quick look at Carson City, which is the first one we have to grow. It's at 86% right now, satisfaction, because of this nice clean thing we have going, and because we have lines coming from all the cities. It's getting a constant supply of textiles and meat to go along with its beer, and it's a happy camper. And I see we've got a connection bonus down here to Bodie, which we may as well take because it's a freebie. So I'm going to put a station in Bodie. Now, this is overkill with the large station. I totally know that, but I like large stations. So we'll run Bodie to, and we have 1 free line out here. Yes, we do, right there. And we took that there. We got our bonus strictly because of the bonus, because it almost paid for our station. We can set up the line, run stuff back and forth, and this one will be important. We will run express only, so we won't be taking any goods and running them back and forth. Reason being, I want the goods to go. Once we get stuff being made in Carson City that's going to help our cluster, I want them to go to want those goods to go to San Francisco, Shasta, and to Sacramento. I don't want them coming out of our cluster. You'll see the same thing later when we do our express lines out of San Francisco to Salt Lake City and to Los Angeles. But this was kind of free money, so we grabbed it. And we'll make a profit on this line, even if we don't touch Bodie again. We will make a profit on the line. So again, free money, hard to argue with it. And let's run 4 trains back and forth here. You notice we've switched to the Dragon, and that's what we'll be using pretty much the rest of the game until we get maybe to the very end. We might switch to a Baldwin, but basically this Dragon will be our workhorse, except for a couple of our express lines we're going to set up. Okay, there we go. So now our next step, pause again. Our next step is to build a ring around this whole thing. So we're going to put in freight stations at each city, a large freight station. That freight station is going to be connected by a double track, say from here, let me get myself here we go, there's my cursor. So we're going to have a, a freight station in San Francisco, double track running on the outside of this through the mountains and into the freight station here in Carson City, which we'll have to go over top of that, but that's okay. Then the freight station here will have a double track running around like this to Shasta. Then we'll have a freight station here that's a double track around to a station here on this side in Sacramento. And finally, a fourth one to complete the loop going back around, tight turn into San Francisco. Now, the freight station, and I'll tell you the exception in San Francisco in just a second, but the main purpose of this is now to give us an easy entry point into bring an entry point to bring goods into our system, and also a way to get those goods to all of the cities. So, for example, we're going to have, let's say, fruit out here. We're going to be bringing fruit in. When we have that line running through here that can go in either way, we can bring fruit down, drive it off this way to go to Carson City or Shasta, drive it off that way to go to San Francisco and Sacramento. And because we have a loop, you will be capable of going to any of the cities from any point outside this loop. So all the freight that we move in can now move in any direction we want to go to our cities. And we could do one of two things here. We could put a warehouse here, bring everything into the warehouse, and then have the warehouse distribute, have lines running from the um, cities to the warehouse. But I'm actually going to do a slightly different approach this time. We're going to have large train stations set up with delivery routes specified to each of the cities. More trains going to the cities that use the goods, like wheat, will go to Shasta more so than the other cities, but we'll have lines running to all of them. And what we're hoping is that way we can control the goods and get that goods and satisfaction going to all of our cities. So our next big task is to build this network of freight stations. So I'm going to start with an easy one, and I'll stay on here for a minute. And then after I get a couple of them set, I'll go away and finish it off, and then we'll come back. So let's rock this thing up. We now have 46 trains running. Should be making good money with all of them. And I'm just going to go ahead and bite the bullet and build. I could do this with regular train stations to start with. In fact, let's just do that. Let's just do that and get it done faster. We'll use a train station. If we need to increase the size of the train station in order to allow for something to come in on an exception basis, we'll do that. But right now, we'll just set up a train station that way with the ability to grow out. One this way, again, with that ability to grow out. And this one definitely needs to be a large station because it has that exception I mentioned, which is two of the lines need to go out, one to Salt Lake City, one to Los Angeles. So that one will certainly end up being a large train station. And they possibly all will at some point. And then our final one in Shasta over here. Like so. Now we just need to connect those up. and we're going to be building lines all the way around. And I'm going to run those lines over and hug the already existing lines. It'll save me some money. It'll double up on those supply towers, and it'll look kind of cool with all those lines running. So here, I'll just show you an example. We're just going to come over and start hugging that line and keep hugging it all the way around the outside until we get to that tunnel where we can't double up, but that's okay because now we've hit our target, which is Shasta. And let's see, inside to inside, that's correct. So let's wait until we get a little money. You see our money's racking up pretty quickly now. That's nice. We've got all those trains running. Now here's where it's going to be different from what we did with those others. Those others were what I call point-to-point lines. That's just a phrase I made up, but it's just essentially saying that these are lines that are running from a city to a city and nowhere else. So you can't really go through the city to go someplace else. You just literally go from one point to another. But in this case, what we're going to do, once we get a little bit more money, we're going to do what you might think was a more conventional double track. You see all these trains coming in here. They're even queued up to come in. Every one of them is ka-ching, ka-ching money when they get in there. That's the way we want it. All right, so there's our double track. So what we do now is build our crossover lanes. And now I think you can start to see we've got this line running on the outside that should be easy for almost all. We have a couple of industry exceptions that are actually inside our little circle here, but almost all of them are outside. So it should be easy to connect these guys up. And we'll do our crossovers rather, on both ends, of course, all the way around this thing. Make sure we drive on the right. All right, there's one, and we've got 3 more of those to go. So I will be right back after I get that done, and we'll talk about the next step. All right, welcome back. I finished out the routing around this thing, and I want to give you a look at it. Let me get myself a cursor. Here we go. So now we have a line that I can show you. Here's our freight station in San Francisco. This line here is going to go around. This line right here is going to go around, and this was quite expensive, about $1.5 million. You could actually do without it and run the freight to everything by connecting the line over here or up here, over here. But I decided it was worth it to go ahead and spend the money and have the full circle. I mean, this is a hard one. Having Carson City in this mix is tough because of that the giant mountains, but it's okay. So here's the line coming in to Carson City, and it goes on and around in a big loop all the way around. Interesting little build down here around San Francisco. Build a bridge. I was tempted to come over here and build the Golden Gate Bridge, but this is probably closer to the one that goes over to Oakland. I think Oakland would be up in here. If my geography isn't failing me. This bridge is probably closer to kind of sort of the one that collapsed during the World Series that year when they had the big earthquake during the World Series some time ago. So now we're set. now we've got ourselves, it's May of 1852. In a second, we'll take a quick look at our objectives and see how we're doing. But we've got good growth, and I'll give you just as an idea. We haven't even put any goods in yet, but look at the growth we've gotten just because of the connections. We're up to 43,000 at Carson City. It just went through a plateau, so it's dropped off. It's expecting more now. And I was able to build a sawmill in here, which we're going to take advantage of here in just a minute. But now let's talk about how we're going to get goods into this system. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a line, set up a large station with the line, and run lines directly to each of the cities by just simply having them connect into our kind of our outer beltway, if you will, which is our freight delivery system. And that gives us kind of plug and I'm hoping it'll give us kind of plug and play kind of capability and allow us to run things where we need them efficiently without driving ourselves crazy trying to build track all over the place to try to get into this system. So we should be able to run to all 4 of our cities this way and do a good job. Now we do have a connection bonus to Winnemucca. I don't really have, how much is it? 182. It would almost pay for itself, but I'm not really that interested in it. Got too many other fish to fry. So, okay, so now we're ready to start plugging in. So let's just try one. Now, first one, we kind of want to go back to the basics and make sure we're getting our original ones in because the demand for this stuff is going to go up. We do know we've got to focus on Carson City early because of our objectives. And I said we'd take a look. So here we go. We've got our goal. We've got our passengers. We connected our cities. 43,008 for Carson City. We've got 4 years to get it to 100,000. We've got to get some alcohol in, so we're going to keep that in mind. Then we got to run over to LA and get started on our second cluster and do our thing down there. So, but we're looking pretty good. All right, and the main thing here is we've just got a good infrastructure in place. That takes a little bit of time. So let us run. Let's focus on getting logs here to Carson City first, and they'll just be our first little foray into this idea. So again, I'm going to use a large station. It's expensive, but fast load, unload, and it gives me the ability to have 4 delivery points off of different platforms, and you'll see why that matters in just a minute. And we want it to have the ability to go right or left as it comes in. So it's going to come in and intersect with our outermost line, which is our freight line. And we're going to use our normal way of connecting to the first line, accepting that, then coming right in front of it, going over to the other side, accepting that, and then checking our signals and going down to the first signal down here that we're running toward and tell it to stay out of this lane, drive on the right. Okay, so that will give us a line running down out of track 3. We're going to take track 4 and run it down. Oh, I wish I'd gotten rid of all that mess. Oh well. We're going to run it down and actually run it past. It's going to be the line you take to get back. Okay. Now, coming back, if you will, from down here below and coming up, you'll be in the right-hand lane, and you'll just drive off this one and go back to the station. So we've got a lane to come down and put you into this lane in order to go down to the bottom of our screen, and then we've got a lane to come back. And that's going to be our basic way of doing our connections for all these things into our outer beltway. So we'll accept that, and then we've got to carefully get our signals correct. We can confirm that this line will hit a supply tower, so we won't need one back behind us. But we'll want to be able to drive down this right-hand side and not come back that way. And on this side, we're going to be coming up, and we're going to let them say, we want to make sure we have a full, let's just go back here and say, put our regular signals in. So people coming up this way, if this section of track is clear, they will come up to there. So that looks good. And now, very important, we have to have a crossover here because I want to use both of these lanes. We have to have our switches. So we'll put in our switching, and we'll have signal that says don't drive in the right-hand lane. Whoops, wrong one. Don't drive in the left, drive on the right. And those are a little tight. That's enough. All right, so we've got a line here now. Before we start any connections, I want to own this baby. So we're going to buy that because the logging business is a pretty cheap one to get into. It's pretty cheap to buy these, pretty cheap to upgrade them, and they actually feed the sawmill and the paper and the furniture, so it's a good thing. So let's buy this guy. Good price. And we're going to, before we start anything else, we're going to do the same thing going the other way because we're going to want to be able to send stuff over to Shasta. Doesn't like bumping into that, but that's okay. So we'll come down like so. Let's go just past those signals. Gives a nice long stretch that we can merge into. Do our usual slide over here to the other lane. And check our signal in the direction we're going. Make sure we don't get into that lane. And that should get us, that'll be our return. So actually going this way, the signals are not such a problem. You're kind of automatically correct when you're making that right-hand turn onto the merge. But we're going to run this line on down past that. And that's going to be our merge. And he'll come down. He'll be in the right lane, so he'll be perfect. And we'll come back on this lane and use that crossover to come over here and go back up into our station. And these things, we just got to be careful with these and be very meticulous. I won't make you watch all of these, but it's definitely worth watching. So we want to come on down as far as we can go. We don't want anybody coming back that way, although I don't think anybody would. And here we want to be able to come back as soon as you got some free track. I want you to come back. And let's do our crossover so we can use both these lines. So we've got our switches. We'll put in signals to say, whoops, drive over there on the right side. So now we've got more clearing. Our little log station can go left, it can go right. It means it can go. So what we'll do is route it so that we'll send a couple of lines. Carson City and San Francisco will be out of tracks 3 and 4, and tracks 1 and 2 will be for Shasta and Sacramento, and we're going to be specific about them. We're going to name them, and I'll show you why in just a second. If you haven't already figured it out, here's what's going to happen. So let's set up a line out of track 1. And if we pick track 1, we can go anywhere because we can make a right-hand turn and literally go all the way around a big circle if we wanted to. But for track 1, we're going to go down to Sacramento. And off she goes. Then we're going to set up a line on track 2, always be full, for Shasta. Let me get this research while it's available. And then we're going to set up track 3 to Carson City. That'll be a lovely one. And we know we're going to want, well, we'll see. It's a short run. That's the nice thing. It's the other reason we wanted to have the lumber there. It's close. And then our 4th one will come out of track 4. And it will go down to San Francisco. Oh, no. And what happened? As soon as I did that, it didn't like it. So why? Why? I think because of this big bridge and everything, I didn't do my crossover. Yeah, I did do them. This is where this game drives me bananas. I thought I was so careful with all this. So what could possibly be causing a problem here? Oh, this is where I totally disagree with the gentleman who designed this game. All due respect, this train is stopped, but they shouldn't be stopped. He's got a clean path. He is stopping all these back through here. This guy can't go across because this guy is stopped and blocking him out. And this should not be happening. I do not agree with whoever came up with this. Those lines should be able to go. Let's see if that cleared it up by getting rid of one. Perhaps we're running too many trains, but I don't believe it. I don't think so. In fact, I know we're not. That should not have happened. All right, so at any rate, now we've got logs coming in to our sawmill. And we're going to bump that sawmill up. Now that does two things. It allows us to provide lumber to the rest of the cluster, but it also causes logs to be a bigger portion, if you will, of the demand. See, our log demand has gone up. So it's a bigger portion of the overall demand for the city. So if we can keep logs in Carson City, that's going to really help us grow the city, because right now we've hit this critical point where we're getting bigger and we are asking for more things. So he's not getting some of this stuff down here, which we're going to work on. Down here, I mean sugar and milk and veggies. So that's the rest of the stuff that we have to work on. So let's start getting him some stuff. Let's start getting some veggies because we're all going to want them. And let's put a train station in here. And I think I will just go ahead and grab both of those. We want to come out and execute our merger like so. I forgot to do my crossover. That's actually our return line, so we do need a crossover here. And we need our signal. Actually, we don't, to be certain, just to follow our little three-step process, we'll make that signal halt us, but we really don't need it in this case because we are turning right, remember, onto the merge. And we're going to come down here, hug this guy, and come in as wherever we can right above that. So the first one we create is our lane going, returning to our farm, and this one is the lane going out. So now we've got our lanes, get our signals. So this guy here, you want to come on down, and you want to come out. Drive on the right hand side, please. So now we've got a lane that can go out and go this way and take fruit and vegetables to Carson City. We'll use that to go Carson City and to Shasta, and then we'll build our lane go the other way. And while we're waiting, we might as well get that going. So out of from here on track 1, we will go to Shasta. You can see our route. And from here on track 2, we'll go to Carson City. Now we'll build our other lane going the other way. And we're just going to miss that supply depot. Our three-step process, connect to the first line, do our crossover, and check our signal. Drive to the right, please. Then build our return lane, which goes down past this one and merges in. Beautiful. And return line, it's okay if you're up to here, it's clear. Going down, we'd want you to sneak down here and line up and get ready to go as soon as you're free. Gotta have our crossover, our signals, I guess I should say. And please drive on the right hand side. So now, with this is to be lanes 3 and 4, we'll take 3 to Sacramento. And we'll take 4 to San Francisco. And now you'll notice these guys are waiting until they have enough to go. So it's almost like it's going to kind of it's got to match up the demand of the city with the supply here. And we really, I would have liked to. That's not bad. We're going to buy these if we can. Should have bought them first. See that one? Vegetables are more in demand now. There are more cities needing veggies. The fruit is not so much in demand just yet. But you notice one of our first guy got out of there, the Chasta guy. Okay, so that's the idea. We're just going to keep loading up new and different things to send into these cities. There, we're getting. Hasn't gotten any of his fruit yet, but he is getting closer to where we want him to be. It does get harder and harder as it gets closer up and higher up. You just got to keep pumping stuff in there. So how are we looking? We're still in 1852. We've got to do alcohol right away. So we need to figure out where to put alcohol. We have 3 textile plants. We only need 1. So I would like to keep this meat here because of this proximity of this cattle, which we're going to start pumping in there if we can. And if we can't, that's okay. It'll just come down by road. Um, I think right here is a good place for a distillery. So what we need to do is purchase this guy, which should be, yeah, he's reasonable because he's really not in a great location. He's not getting cotton. He's got some, but it's just very slowly coming in. So what we're going to do is destroy this and then put in our distillery. But we need about 5. What does it cost to destroy? 5, 7. We'll need about 800,000. So let's let it run for a little bit. And while that's running, let's pick up some more employees. Okay. And now we should be able to buy, what was it we wanted to do? Ah, yes, sorry. We're going to demolish the weaver and put in a distillery. Near our freight station. Now we've got fruit coming in, and we're going to need to start pumping sugar. And right up here is actually the closest, easiest place to do that. So let's start pumping sugar. Ooh, let's see if we can buy this first. Is it worth it? Yes, because we're going to want to be able to bump it up. Oh, he just reduced. Good deal. So we just bought that guy. Now we're going to build a large train station and introduce him into our system where I think I'd rather actually do it back, even though we need it in San Francisco, I'd rather do it back a ways. Okay. connect, cross over, and we're going to check that. We'll keep our rhythm, but really, again, we're turning right, so this should not matter as far as the signals. But we will say drive on the right side, please. And I keep muttering the same thing. I apologize. But once we get this one done, we'll take another little break and move on. When we're ready to move on to something a little more exciting, we'll get into that. Now there's our actual merge. And as you can see when you're merging and turning right, again, you're already merging into the right-hand lane, so you're in good shape on that. So that's all good. They will they'll hit supplies in either way. When you're merging, I want you to run down here as far as you can and wait. When you come back, I want you to have a clear track so you can get completely out of the way. Have our cross. All right. That'll get us to the right. Now we need to go to the left to Shasta and to Carson City. Do our merge. In this case, we do have to check our signal. Yeah, we don't want you driving in that lane. And then our exit will be this side. Like so. So when you're exiting, I want you to come off as soon as you've got a free shot up to here. When you're entering, I want you to come on down and wait in line. And we'll do our crosses. Set our signals like so. And now we should be ready to start sending sugar into our system. Out of track 4. We will go to San Francisco. Slow down, slow down. Out of track 3, we will go to Sacramento. Out of track 2, we will go to Shasta. And out of track 1, we will go to the logging camp, to Carson City. All right, so now we've got sugar being loaded up. And here's where it's nice to own these things. We know we're going to ramp up things with our distillery, so I'm going to go ahead and boost up our production a couple of times. There we go. Now we've got our guys filling up, and we're also in our distillery. We're going to need to get on that. So we're going to boost that up as soon as we have some money. Even though the city demand isn't there, we have that goal of making 200 units. So we've got to have some production going. I'd like to get away with just the one distillery since it's all we need to feed our cluster. So now we've got alcohol production. I didn't even check it. He doesn't have any fruit, so we're probably going to want to make sure that our fruit, let's see, that might be him right there. That's Sacramento. There's San Francisco. He's got a mixture of veggies and fruit. And we need a supply tower going that way. Because the guys going to San Francisco are not passing one. I forgot to put that in. Okay, so let's stop right there. We're off to a good start. We're going to keep feeding. I'll bring you back in when we're ready to go on. And I think we're getting to it's 1853. And while I'm talking, I'll grab some research. I love this one. 20% less maintenance requirements. So let me pause this thing. Let's see how we're doing. February 1853. Quick look at our objectives. We're up to 53,000 in Carson City. Got to keep loading stuff in there. And there we go. We're starting to make alcohol. That's good. And like I said, we'll get our express lines going next time. Thank you for joining. I hope this helped you. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it makes you a better player. And I look forward to seeing you again on our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.